this time. And now I'd like to move on to item 4.1, study session. The Board of Trustees will conduct a study session regarding facilities. Take it away, gentlemen. Ladies.
Okay. Okay, well, first, board, I'd like to apologize that I was preoccupied when you walked in the door. Today was a big day for us in the Paris Union High School District in that we had our first bond sale. Yes. And so we are wrapping that up. There will be a time during the study session where I need to leave to print and sign the final purchase contract so that they're done by the close of business today. But it's not that this isn't important. It's just, you know, this is $40 million from our our first sale. So this was the certificates of participation, which, as you recall, is backed by, paid from rather, the CFD 92-1. Also, if you recall, when we first brought this idea of the certificates of participation to you, we were talking about 25 million. When we ended up here with the finance team, we were just a little over 30 million. We crept up to, by the time we did our last presentation to you, again, because of assessed valuation, $33.8 million was the project fund, but I'm not done. There's more. Yesterday, we had our pre-pricing call. You may have seen some of this in the weekly update. And based on what the markets had done the week before and that day, Monday, as a result of some tweets that went out about the China trade tariffs, you can go look that up if you're interested. We did really well on the market. Investors pulled out of some of their municipal securities and wanted to invest in bonds. Our project fund is now $5.9 million, $40.1 million. Or I'm sorry, I did that math wrong in my head. 39.8, is that right? No. Okay, thank you. So probably needless to say, and it's probably showing all over my face and body language, I'm on cloud 9. So we wanted to share that with you because that's really good news for the district to have the investors want our bonds so well or so great that we fared very, very well in the market today. So that's the good news. Now it's time that we are going to turn over to the actual topic of the study session today, which I know that the board had requested to have somewhat more regular study sessions as it relates to facilities. That's super exciting to Dr. Good and Hector and myself because we love talking about facilities. Just so happens that this first meeting was very timely because we have a really important topic that we need to discuss with you. I'm realizing now that there's a person here you may not remember. It's been a couple of years, I think, since you've been in the audience. This is Kelly Owen with F3, our law firm. Just a dynamite attorney, and we have been keeping her busy these last few weeks. So with that, I'll get started. We're going to present up here. So here's what our agenda is for today. We wanted to spend just a little bit of time having Hector give you an update on the facilities projects that we have going on. Of course, Paloma Valley High School is not a Measure W project, but it doesn't mean it's any less important of a facilities project. As well as the Measure W projects, which are CMI, Paris High School, and of course Liberty High School. But we want to focus the majority of our time today on Liberty High School because we've run into some recent project challenges, I'm going to say. I want to let you know that we are coming to you with a solution today. So as we're talking and it starts to sound like bad news after bad news after bad news, please know we have a solution. We've been working on it. That's why we've been keeping Kelly very, very busy. And we want to, it's an important topic, so we want to make sure that we go into the level of detail that the board will need to ultimately make a decision on this at a next board meeting. So that's what we plan to spend the rest of the time on, if that's okay with you, as well as talk about those next steps for possibly the May board meeting, but also a few meetings beyond that, if that sounds okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. President. So I'll start by turning it over to Hector. We have to pass this mic around, though.
Okay. All right, yeah, so this afternoon I'm going to be covering our active projects that are under construction, projects that are in planning, kind of give you an update of the project, where they're at, what's going on with the project, and take any questions you might have. So to start off, we're going to start off with Paloma Valley High School, the 10 classroom, 2-story classroom addition, and the addition to the stadium, the ticket booth, concession, and the restroom building. And this is a non-Measure W project, so we'll start off with Paloma. So as you recall, this is a 10 classroom building. It's got 6 regular sized classrooms, 4 flex labs, 1440s with demonstration tables and sinks around the buildings. It's got restrooms, staff workrooms. For that area of the campus, it's going to be great to have restrooms and workrooms available for teachers. They're not having to walk all the way. If you've ever been to Paloma, you know where the J building is. They're having to walk across and use printers and copiers and stuff like that. So, and I think there's a distinction between printers and copiers, but they're having to walk quite a bit. So having workrooms is going to be great. The stadium building is going to have new ticket booths, concessions, restrooms, and we're doing a new entrance to the stadium, which I'll show you here in some images. And this project is under construction now. It began in November of last year, of 2018, and we're on schedule. Believe it or not, with all the rain, we're still on schedule to open in August. So the construction crew out there has been awesome. They've been kicking butt, and we've been doing creative scheduling to get back on track. So. Just a few images of the project where it sits now. This is the 2-story classroom building. Image on the left is the front of the building. It's got the stairs on the side of the building. It connects to the existing J building through a skywalk. Picture on the right is one of the standard size classrooms. That's what it looks like right now. They're still doing all the wiring, all the electrical, getting the rooms all set up. So, and some renderings. At the end of the day, this is the architect and the project team's idea of what they're going to look like. So the picture on the left, you can kind of see the existing J building. You see students walking in of the new entrance by the J buildings. We're going to have a nice plaza there that's going to be built this summer. That plaza, the picture on the right is the students in that plaza. In front of the existing gym, all the way up to that first solar panel is going to be actually an enclosed part of the campus now. So if you've ever been to Paloma and you've been there at a passing period, that big pinch point right by the gym, we're expanding that out. So there's going to be a lot of room there for students to circulate back and forth. And that's important, especially with the addition of these 10 classrooms over on that end of the campus. So with that, I've also, besides facilities guy, I'm going to become a little bit of a video editing guy. So I put together this quick video of the construction progress. It's a time-lapse video of the classroom edition. Awesome. Kind of see it. As you can see, they staged them on the campus. There was 28 components. The crane was there. It took them 3 days to actually put it all in place. So this video actually encompasses 3 days worth of work. And at one point, I think we had 80 workers there working on this. So it was a really cool process. It set the time-lapse camera. It took a picture every, I think, 3 minutes. And so I actually had some music to go with it, but nobody really liked the music. So
No, nobody could agree.
Oh, yeah, so here's the actual progress of the concession building and restroom building out at the stadium. Paloma Valley High School doesn't have a restroom or concession building at the stadium. It's the only campus in our district, and really a lot of, I can't think of another campus in the area. Maybe there's one in Valverde that doesn't have a restroom building at the stadium. So this is going to be a great addition. This is how the building sits right now. The framing is done. The sheeting on the outside is done. They're working on drywall inside the building right now. Electrical, plumbing, all the infrastructure is going on right now. So if you go out to the site, that's what the building looks like right now. And here's our artist rendering. Same thing, the architect put these renderings together of what the building's going to look like when it's completed. The bottom picture on the right has a little piece of the expanded parking lot, so it's going to have a new entrance to the stadium as well. When school starts next year, all that will be completed, and so we have a little area there to actually define the entrance to that stadium, which it doesn't have right now. So with that, I'm going to move to the CMI gym and gymnasium and parking circulation project. This is the beginning of our Measure W projects. So Measure W, as you recall, we have 3 priority projects. CMI project includes a new facility, a new gymnasium facility. It's going to have a full CIF basketball court, boys and girls locker rooms with coaches' offices, large ASB flexible learning spaces, one big classroom, exercise room with equipment. Met with the AD the other day. If it was up to him, he'd have cutting edge, weight equipment in there. We're looking at it's gonna have treadmills, that type of equipment in there. So they're really excited about getting this building. We're also going to expand the student drop-off area and the circulation at the front of the campus. And I didn't put a bullet in there, but as you recall, we're working with the city. The city's going to be widening A Street in front of CMI, so we'll be coordinating with them as well. We're not sure when that's going to happen yet. The project is currently being reviewed by DSA. They actually have an appointment on Thursday, the architects do, to hopefully be stamped out. So hopefully this Thursday, DSA approves the project, and we're chomping at the bit. As soon as it's approved and we're stamped, it's going to go out to bid so we can do some work this summer. As much as we can do this summer, where the gym is going to sit, I'll show you on the site plan. Here's the site plan. I've showed you, this has been in previous presentations, but where the gym sits now is their north parking lot. So we need to, this summer, work on that. We're up at the top where it says expanded parking. We need to work in that area where the tennis courts currently sit, where the handballs sit, get that area ready for parking in August so that we can take that north parking lot and start working on the gym. The way it's laying out right now, I think that the street work and the circulation part of this project is going to happen summer of 2020. It's just the city approval of their offsite plans in the street on 8th Street probably won't happen in time for us to bid it to be able to do the work this summer, the way it's laying out right now. So it's 2 separate approvals. One is on-site through DSA. The off-site approval is with the city of Paris. And so we're going to be coordinating with them, but that's the way the project is laying out right now. If you look at the image, we have the new gymnasium in blue at the top. Really, the portables that currently sit out at the south side of the campus against that block wall are going to be moved to the area where the boys and girls locker room are now. Those are going to be demolished, and those portables will be moved there. And then we're going to expand the parking on the south side of the campus, and again, expand the student drop-off and pickup area. Here's some renderings of what the gym will look like. It's going to match the kind of the motif of the F building, the science and music building. That was the last project we did there at the campus. Bottom left-hand corner, just another image of the gym, and the bottom right-hand corner as well. So then move over to Paris High School. So these plans are currently in design. We're actually still working with the design team and working very closely with Paris High School staff to finalize the construction plans. This is a preliminary project timeline. We don't have DSA approval. We're ready to submit to DSA in July and August of this year. We're targeting, it looks like we're going to make July. But so the plans aren't finalized yet. They will be in time to submit and for approval. We're thinking once it goes to DSA, maybe 6 months of review time. We're looking at December, January, being out of DSA. And this is the leaseback project. So once we get the plans back, we'll start working with our construction management firm, Neff Construction, to get the plans ready, get contractors on board to begin the project in June of 2020. This project is going to involve demolishing all the old buildings on campus. So the front admin building, 3200s, 3400s, all the old buildings that still exist on that campus will be demolished as part of this project. So in all that, the reason we have to wait till 2020 for summer is that right down the middle of the demo area runs all the data, fire alarm, security alarm, telephone lines. So we're having to, next summer, do a little pre-project, get all that stuff moved out of the way to be able to take the buildings down. So that means next summer there won't have an opportunity for summer school at the campus. They won't have data, they won't have fire alarms, they won't have the systems that I mentioned. So just a
Host that at a different site for those students?
yeah, we'll have to look at that. Just so.
I just want to make sure they would still have the opportunity to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Will the pool still be open?
Yeah. The pool's not affected by the it's out of the demo area. So if we wanted to, the pool could still stay open. But the actual campus itself, we can't have people in the buildings because we won't have fire alarm. We'll have to have a fire watch for the months during while we're doing that project, and because we're still going to have staff there, custodians are going to be there, so we have to have fire watch. But all those systems have to be moved out of the way for us to be able to start. So small pre-project, but once we demo, the project we're expecting is going to be about 20-month project. So we're looking at completing this project in December of 2022. December, January. I wanted to say winter, but it'll be in that area. A lot of the things I want to stress that this timeline is not finalized. We still have kind of the X factor. We're still trying to figure out when we're going to submit to DSA. And DSA is a wild card in all our projects. Sometimes they're quick on their review and return. Sometimes they're a little slow. It all depends on who they have reviewing our plan. So we've got a really good relationship with them, and they know that we want to move forward with our project. So it's just a matter of calling them every once in a while and making sure that they're still reviewing our plans actively.
And we're really fortunate that you all as a board, almost 2 years ago now in our study session, when we first, pitched all of this idea of the priority project as well as the bond feasibility, gave us the go-ahead to start planning this because that's put us almost 2 years ahead. It's a really old campus, and it's a very small acreage campus, so it makes it that much more complex to work with. So I'm glad we're not just now beginning the process.
Yeah.
Candace, there's another part to that the board should be commended, and that is if we had to add 2 more years of cost escalation, so that was really fortuitous that we did that.
Yeah. So this is a site plan.
Yeah.
Site plan of the campus, like you've seen this image before. It's got the single point of entry at the admin, learning commons there in the blue, kind of towards the right. We're expanding the parking lot in the front. Somebody asked me the other day, how are you going to do that? But if you think about it, when we demo the old buildings, all this new stuff is being pushed back onto the campus. So there's a lot of space between the 4,000 building that we just opened a couple years ago and where the admin is going to sit. So there's space there to push everything back. So the front of the campus is actually more like a regular campus. We're not so landlocked. That parking lot out there gets really congested in the morning. So opening up the parking lot, expanding the parking area, I think is a great thing for the campus. Really awesome visual performing arts building. We're going to expand the student drop-off and pickup area. And PE, physical education facilities, and then the ag. It's actually the ag phase 3, the ag mechanical building. We're working with staff on that. I'll show you an image of that here in a minute. Here's some renderings. Very cool shots of what the admin and the theater building are going to look like. The top picture, if you look to the left, that's the admin. If you look to the right, that white box with the kind of the glass sitting in front of it, that's the theater lobby. So bottom corner is kind of a view looking from Ruby towards the campus, towards the admin. If you look at the white area on the left, that's the library, student union, learning commons, and the brown box with the 4 windows, 2-story admin. I think downstairs is counseling, upstairs is downstairs is the counseling area, upstairs is the AP area, discipline. So the top picture here, at the stadium, we're putting a building there. It's going to be, we're calling it the campus operations building. It's a large custodial area. It's going to have a drop-off, kind of a little loading dock, 2 big roll-up doors. So the custodial operations center, they can have store their supplies. Part of that building is also the home team room. During football games, they have their facility. They're going to have a locker facility. We already have a training room on campus, but we'll have a little auxiliary area here for student injuries. And we also have a PE, adaptive PE, or just a regular PE, big classroom. In case it's raining, they need an area to go into, they can use that classroom. If you look at the picture down on the left, that's the Ag Mech building. That little area down at the bottom left of that image is the fabrication yard. There's a big roll-up door there. I mean, they're going to be able at this Ag Mech. It's concentrated on metal fabrication. So they're going to have welding booths. They're going to have welders. They're going to have a big gantry crane. So if they're building a trailer, they can pull the trailer up, turn it upside down to weld on it. A big CNC cutting table. It's going to be an awesome facility. If you look at the bottom right, that enclosed area there where those two roll-up doors, that's the plant supervisor or the campus operations area. They have a yard, be able to put their golf carts, their different equipment in there. So, and that's over by the stadium. These renderings, again, are the inside of the admin building. If you look at the top left, is a look at the circulation desk for the Learning Commons. So that's where the librarian will sit. You see the shelving back behind her for books. The stairs are going up to the upper area of the admin. The top right image is the top of the stairs when you first walk into that single point of entry. That desk area on the right is where Cynthia will sit. That door would lead into Mr. Santos's office, the campus principal. Bottom left-hand corner is the lobby of the theater. We have some seating areas. There's a restroom down in this area, and there's going to have screens. If there's a production going on, someone needs to walk out, they can look at these screens, not miss a moment of the show. The center picture down at the bottom, again, is of the library Learning Commons, and that picture on the bottom right is the theater. So right now it's a 500-seat theater. It's got a band, orchestra, semi-recessed orchestra pit. It's got the fly bridge, so it's got all the drop-down scene elements like they have over at Heritage. Tony, I know you're very familiar with that. But it's got all those same components as we have over at Heritage. And this is another view looking kind of northwest of the Ag Mech down at the bottom, and on the bottom right, the left. And at the bottom right is the animal pen area. Towards the front of that, there's a hay animal feed storage area. There's also a small component for animal medical science in this area. So those are animal pens, pig pens. It's covered, keep them out of the weather, and students can work on their projects in that area. And then with that, I'll move on to Liberty High School. So this project, again, is under construction. We started back in December. We really got through the bid period quickly through bidding. This project is I found a typo. So the project bid period went from December to about March of 2020. By the time we got done, March of 2019, by the time we got done vetting all the contractors and bringing them to the board for ratification for approval, the earthwork category was ratified in February of this year. They're out there working now. They're moving a lot of dirt, getting rid of a lot of rocks. We're blasting in some areas. 27 construction categories were ratified in March of this year. And I want to touch real quickly on 5 categories. You guys recall a couple of board meetings ago, we asked for the ability to take 5 categories out to rebid. And I think we even had a contractor that showed up and talked about, why are we rebidding, that we're not going to save any money. Well, I'd like to, we opened these 5 bids last week, and we saved almost $3 million. And the contractor that came a couple board meetings ago, he actually came in low bid again. So he's actually going to be working on the project.
With a lower number.
With a lower number.
Well, it was supposed to be less work though, because the architect was supposed to change the
Right.
Yeah, we changed some of the project documents, changed a few items around, added and deleted some scope. So he came in a lower number, got the project, and so they're going to move forward. But those 5 categories, rebidding those 5 categories was a tough decision because some of the contractors who had originally won those categories are contractors we work with very often, and they're in our bidder pool, and we work with these people. Having to tell them that we're going to rebid, some of them didn't get the second rebid, but the district saved almost $3 million by rebidding. So that's great news when we opened bids last week, and I wanted to bring that up and make you aware of that.
So because we saved money, now we're in the green, right? Not in the red?
Well, on those categories, so you're talking the red from the original
Right.
estimate?
That's one reason why we wanted them to rebid, right?
Yeah.
So we can save money.
Well, to save money. Yeah.
over budget, and we're gonna get to a little bit more.
Yeah. So, I mean, those $3 million really help. You know, I think it was a very smart choice, and it wasn't the most popular choice, but as you can see by the gentleman who came to talk to you all, but $3 million is a lot of money that we saved. And these awards, right now we're working with the contractors to vet their bids, go through the documents, make sure that they've covered everything, and then we're going to be bringing those to you in June as a ratification. We have to get those guys on board, get them signed up so they can start submitting their submittals, their product data to catch them up with the rest of the contractors so they're ready to go when their category comes up for construction. Like I said, earthwork and grading are currently underway, and we're still scheduled to open in August of 2021, but there's an asterisk there. There's important information that Candace and Fred and myself will be talking to you about that asterisk. I hate asterisks.
We're gonna get rid of it.
Yeah, so here's a site plan. You can see the top right corner, its relationship to that gray area, which is the La Ventana project, which leads into what we're gonna be talking about later on. But there's a site plan. You can see the student union, the small learning communities, the Center for Applied Science and Engineering, theater, admin, gym building, related sports fields, and parking areas. So here's some renderings of the campus. Again, you've seen these before. I include them in there. Once we have actual coming out of the ground, you'll have some really cool pictures to look at, but right now we have the renderings. The top one is the front of the campus looking at the admin. Bottom left-hand corner is the student union cafeteria area, and that orange box on top is the Learning Commons library. Bottom center picture is the quad area, and then the bottom right picture is on the stadium looking towards the campus. On the right is that glass area is there's a weight room up there, exercise room, and that's the gym building.
Where the construction trailer is right now, is that where the track is?
No, so if you go back to this image, right here where it says Meadowgate Lane on the right,
In the far right.
far right, yeah, right where that circle is, that's where you walked in the other day. That's where the construction trailer is. So we're all the way down to the bottom to the right. We're right at the edge of the property. Yeah, so if you look at Wickard, if you come down, if you turn left on Leon, you get to Wickard first. And then keep going across, and then you get to Meadowgate. So Meadowgate is all the way at the far edge of the property.
Hector, can I add one? Because I'm gonna confuse you even more. Because a lot of the graphics that I have both the school and La Ventana. So if you take this picture of the school and turn it like this, La Ventana is gonna be here, just to get you more confused. So I'll show you one more.
Yeah, if you look at the top, at this image here, if you look at the top right, that gray area, that's towards the freeway. So you see where the
Yes.
campus is, that's towards the freeway.
Scott Road is way to the left.
I'm confused, it seemed like Wickard and Leon were the same roads. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah, one goes east-west, and the other goes north-south.
Kind of another reference. Yeah, so that's a good point. So if you look at where the tennis courts are, that's where the groundbreaking ceremony was. And where the basketball courts are, that's where the other day when you were out there, that big pile of rock is in that area.
When this is all done, I think we should have some big old marketing thing, let everybody come in and see it.
Oh, yeah.
Bring in local news people and stuff like that, cause this is not just a high school.
Well, I'll tell you right, they're already really interested. We're getting calls and emails, and people want to know what's going on, when it's going to open, and people calling, wanting to buy a house in the area, but they want to make sure they go to this campus. So there's a lot of interest in the school already. It's an important addition to that area. So those are the renderings, and here goes my video work again. So actually, this I just took the video. We're having weekly drone flyovers of the property, and this is one of the videos that was taken by the drone. So as you can see, this is kind of working its way south. And you see all the equipment moving around the area on the property. And Yeah, so we just passed it there. If you look at the top right, that green area, hold on. I'm trying to pause it. Yeah. Top right corner, if you look at that, oh, see where the arrow is, where my mouse is? Keep an eye on this area here. Fred's going to talk about that area here in a minute. That's an important area to take note of. We haven't touched it in the grading, and there's a reason for that. That Fred will get into here in a minute. Everything else on the property we've touched. I mean, we're blasting rock. We're moving so much dirt out there. I mean, it's a huge operation. That first contractor we signed up, Crew Incorporated, that's doing the grading. I've never worked with a contractor. We haven't heard a peep out of those guys. They're just out there every single day, 10 hours a day, just moving that dirt. Usually we have complaints that, you know, they found rock in an area they weren't expecting, or they're overtime. They're not charging us a penny for overtime. They want to get done with this as soon as possible and move on to the next project. They've been really great so far.
You know, I have to just say, I've been out to the site and I met all the construction managers, and they are some nice guys.
We have a really good team out there.
They really work.
Yeah, and that team is a team that's put in place by years of working with these people and choosing people and getting people on the team. Before those guys went out there working with Neff, the guys, you know, they would propose a guy, we'd say no. What about this guy? And it's kind of like we drafted them for this project. This is a huge project. We got to make sure that the guys out there are team players and they know what they're doing. So we've really worked closely with our construction managers to make sure we have the right people out there. So. See if I can figure this out. So this again is a site plan. If you can hardly see, oh, it looks, you can see it up there a lot better than you can see it on my computer. So it's got an overlay. It takes that first site plan I showed you and it overlays over the graded site plan. The top left corner, you see that green area that Fred will get into here in a minute. But that's how our project sits right now. You know, that area of the campus that's been graded, we're almost to where they're going to start laying in electrical and plumbing lines. But they've done a lot of work out there. So we're expecting a couple more months of grading, and we're still on track for August of 2021. That's what we're all working for, with that asterisk that we're going to talk about right now.
Is this the asterisk? Can I borrow you? Good afternoon, Dr. Rout. Thank you for making it. I know it's not easy to do that. And I want to echo something that Candace said, and that is that while on the one hand, we hate to drag you into the weeds, on the more important hand, it's great that you're willing to commit the time. There's a very complex issue that I'm going to talk about that, to me, it's important that you understand all of the facts, not fact number 2 or 12, but you understand all of it. And the good news is we have, you know, a solution to deal with this challenge. But I want you to know, I mean, we take every project very, very importantly. But when you have a high school where the community has twice voted a tax on themselves, I mean, we feel a real responsibility to make sure that everything is, you know, is in order. And I don't know, it's just been so fantastic. I mean, working in this district for as long as I have, but this project really is the best example of something that I admire in Candace so much. I mean, she has this team environment where participation and presenting a conflicting idea, it's not just invited, it's really expected. And when you hear what my new best friend here and I have been through, it has been so fantastic to be able to work together with Scott Smith, with Hector, with Candace, with Kelly, to be able to come today with all of us having argued, having had our own opinions, but we come to you today absolutely united in what we think you ought to do in this condition that I'm going to describe. So, Candace, thank you for that. I mean, it's really good to get those different perspectives, and you know, happy that that has happened. So anyway, what I'd like to do is kind of go through this lockstep, because I think it's important that you understand why some decisions were made, when they were made, how they were made, and how that all relates to this solution that we think we're going to get to on what is, I can't sugarcoat it, it's a significant challenge, but we're going to get there. At any rate, believe it or not, this project started 10 years ago when we had, I want to say, 15 different site alternatives that we looked at, and but we went through and reviewed, analyzed, all of those, landed on one site. We developed, thanks to Joe and many other people in the district, educational specifications for the project, which really were what is the recipe for this school design? What is it that we hope to accomplish? It was a great process that, was lucky enough to be involved in. But the issue was, we were always going to go after state money, but we needed local money to match that. So in 2012, we went to our voters and said, if you will tax yourselves for half of the high school and other projects, we'll go to the state and surely they'll come through with the other half. We selected an architect in 2013, which we had to do. We had to develop plans. We already owned the site to be in a position. Yes, Tony.
Not to interrupt you, but you're at that point. What did we pay per acre?
$100,000. Yeah. Which sounds high, but when we down the road talk about the next high school site, pennies. Menifee is a popular place, I'll tell you. But anyway, so the planning process for the high school, and I think Hector will agree, I couldn't be more thrilled with the architect that we've selected and just how on top of it they are. But that took a couple of years. Then in 2016, we had the site that we owned, we had the plans that were approved through the state, and we submitted to the state for funding. And that's where the great planning that we had done kind of went haywire. Because the Governor Brown at that point decided, even though the California electorate had voted $9 billion in authorization for bonds to replenish the state school funding program, really he kind of stonewalled the release of those funds all the way through until Governor Newsom has been elected, and it's now loosening up a little bit. But it really put you guys in a hard position, because here we had plans that were approved. I know you would go to the supermarket and people would say, when are you going to start building that high school? And so we made the hard decision, as Candace said a couple years ago, to go out for yet a second local bond, which I don't know, Kelly, if you've experienced it, but I've not seen many high schools that are virtually locally funded. I mean, that's a big nut to crack. So we approved Measure W 2018, started bidding in January 2019, and Hector has showed you kind of where we're at today. So that's a quick 10-year snapshot to where we're kind of at today. This is important because it's part of the challenge, if you will. In 2010, we did the environmental impact review. All state agencies had a chance to respond, with comments. And if you look at this this picture, you'll see that it's pretty dry, reflective of kind of drought conditions then. But I'll be darned if I can see a water course anywhere. And the good news is that in 2010, our environmental impact report consultant also didn't see any water courses. And in fact, she, in the report, said natural water courses are not present at the proposed school site, and then some additional language. Reason I say that is we did not feel the need, and it was corroborated by an environmental impact report, to get any permits for interrupting water courses, etc. So hold that thought. Initial challenges that we faced with Liberty High School were certainly negotiating the price, Tony, that you mentioned. We had a extensive negotiation for that, finalized that. We acquired the site shortly thereafter. But in 2012, Hector and I started what has been a interesting journey with the local water district, Eastern Municipal Water District. Those of you that don't have the privilege of dealing with water districts every day, they have significant power and influence. When we went to them, because we were one of the first projects to be in that area where the high school is located, they had this wonderful idea that we were going to be the regional solution for sewer that did not exist out there. Hector and I said, "Oh no, we're not. We don't have the funding to do that. But what we will do is we will be on the lookout for a development partner. That's their game to really work on infrastructure, for a larger area." And that started in 2013-14, and we created this partnership with, I think, Candace, it was first called French Valley 170, and now it's called La Ventana Ranch. And it was very clear that they were the lead in all matters related to sewer. And in fact, they were always going to be the first one out of the gate, because we had a state program that was not even funded at that point. And so they were always going to be the first ones that were going to be building out there. The thing that Hector and I and Candace didn't know then that we know now is that we had always worked with a gentleman, his name's Joseph Ravani. His company was Global Investments. All of our negotiations, our mitigation agreement was signed by him. I wish we would have known, ironically, that his funding for the project, how ironically, is coming from CalSTRS. So that was the money behind the project. We never knew that. All we knew was, this Global Investments, et cetera. So at any rate, at that point, we had a very clear understanding with Mr. Ravani that it was his responsibility to plan, engineer, design the sewer system that would serve both his project and ours, and he certainly was willing to do that. Then the story, and this is just a global picture of the area. I want you to just take notice that all of the development is to the left or the west, and as such, that becomes important because now that we're developing our high school and La Ventana is developing their project, it means taking utilities that are coming from the west all the way to the east. That becomes important as we get a little further into the situation here. As Mr. Ravani and Hector and I started to meet with Eastern Municipal Water District, while they weren't happy that there wasn't going to be a regional sewer solution, they came up with an interim expectation, if you will. So this is one of the graphics that I was saying. The blue little rectangle is our high school project. The medium green just to the left of it is La Ventana Ranch, and then the rest is just planning occurring around that area.
One other thing, if I could point out,
Uh-huh.
will come in a little bit later. So we talked about I'm seeing the colors differently than you, Fred. So you can see La Ventana and then PUHSD, and then right below that in a light blue, that's a second developer. So that'll just kind of put a pin in that for just a minute.
Right.
We'll talk about the EMWD. I'm sorry, not the EMWD. The Leon and Scott Signal intersection improvements. So
Right.
third party there.
So anyway, the middle ground solution that EMWD pretty much forced on La Ventana was, okay, on the bottom right-hand corner of their site, I'm sure you can't, maybe you can see it on the paper in front of you, there is a sewer lift station that will serve both La Ventana and our high school. It's La Ventana's responsibility to build that. The green line that goes from the right of the page to the left along Wickard Road is a 12-inch sewer gravity force main that is important to handle the effluent, or the sewer stuff from both the high school, from La Ventana, and as Candace said, this second developer right below it.
So, and it's hard, so I have the so it's really hard to see this little tiny square right there is the lift station, and this is the green line. It won't
Yeah, it
show
doesn't
up
show
here.
up.
And then this will be the red. We'll talk about in a sec. Just so I can just back down.
La Ventana consists of how many?
511 homes. Yeah. Okay. But now the other part was EMWD said, okay, well, we won't ask you to build a regional solution, but if, Candace, do you mind standing one more time? The green square to the left, right there. What EMWD has said, okay, you can operate sewer for La Ventana, for the high school, and for the blue property, the Newman property, up to a certain point. X number of homes, 1,500 students, et cetera. But you have to have a plan in place to then extend the sewer into the red, which is then a 15-inch sewer extension line that's proposed, that then will provide full coverage for our projects, those 3 projects, and for others. So that becomes important here in just a minute. But that all is in an agreement that currently is between La Ventana and EMWD. We just get the sewer service as part of our existing mitigation agreement. So along La Ventana comes in 2015, and they want to get their property what's called entitled. Turn it from raw land into lots, into 511 lots. They're required to do the environmental impact report. They do it at a time that follows more rain than we had. And if you look on your site plan there's a blue line that I've drawn that all of a sudden, unfortunately, starts on their property, touches the very, very corner of our property, and then continues down to what is the Newman property, which is that second development that Candace talked about. This created all heck because the Army Corps of Engineers determined that that water course had significant meaning, and thus La Ventana, you have to go after a permit to figure out how you're going to, since you want to revise that water course and create an enclosed drainage facility, how are you going to do that? And we want to send you through a 1.5-year process, to satisfy us. Hector and I have been intentionally mum on the word of the permit, because again, when you go back to 2010, our environmental impact report says we don't have a need, to do that. But it's become very onerous. It's why when you looked at Hector's aerials, there's a certain area that has not been touched. Tony, when you were out there, I'm sure you saw that. Yeah.
But that green area.
Right. But it's become a real issue when Hector talks about the grading contractor from heaven, thank goodness, because a contractor, given the constraints that we've put on them, we call it the no-fly zone, that green area that we've said you can't touch that until this permit is completed through La Ventana. So we'll get to their progress on that here in just a second. So in 2014, 15, 16, your superintendent then, Dr. Greenberg, Hector, myself, Candace, we made a conscious decision, which is a little atypical, that we were going to become advocates for this project as they went through the county to turn it from raw land into entitled property. And it was simply because we needed their sewer facilities, their infrastructure facilities, because we'd already stood up to EMWD and said, we're not in the sewer business, but we needed a development partner. And so we did what we thought was a great job. I mean, we stood up at the county and explained, why this project was important to us, why it was important to the community, and it worked, or at least we thought it worked, because their property went from not a lot of value to great value because it now had a map on it for 511 homes. And we were all excited. We thought that was good enough. Well, ended up not necessarily being so. There was a price, however, to La Ventana for getting Hector Gonzalez to stand up in front of the world and say your project is great. And that came in the form of a mitigation agreement that we negotiated with them. And the mitigation agreement, if they were going to pay what were state statutory normal fees, they would have been on the hook for about $2.5 million. What we ended up negotiating with them was something that it's worth about twice that, $5 million. And it's comprised of, and we approved that in 2015, through the board here. But it's comprised, that mitigation agreement has three expectations. They shall pay $5,950 per dwelling unit, times 511 equals a little over $3 million. You will also build a lot of utility improvements. Now remember I said the utilities are coming from west to east. It's important that they have the responsibility to bring power all the distance to our property line, to bring gas, to bring sewer. Because as you're going to hear, if those responsibilities were to lie on us, we not only have to worry about the cost related to for the school, we have to bring all of those facilities as if we were a developer. We're not real, excited about that. But one thing that we also were going to do as part of that mitigation agreement was, you've heard us talk about CFD 92-1. It's wonderful today because Candace is able to talk about how much money we raised using that as collateral, if you will, or at least the revenue from that. What we agreed to do for them, and it was pretty selfish on our part, but they wanted it too, was we were going to agree to let their property, which was within the boundaries of 92-1, when we negotiated the mitigation agreement, we were going to let them get out of that CFD. And the reason was that would allow them to create a new CFD with Eastern Municipal Water District to help pay for all of the utilities, street improvements, et cetera. So that's an important point to keep in mind. We were going to allow them to opt out of that. And the reason I say that it was good for us is because even though 92-1 encompasses 17,000 acres generally throughout the Menifee area, really it's not of tremendous value to us. And we have to go through this contrived selling certificates of participation to generate funding, and we did today. but it really is better if we had them paying us a per unit fee, and it just would have worked out better for us. I failed to mention there were street improvements that they're on the hook for to within their obligations in the mitigation agreement. So for I would say 6 months, Hector and I have been calling this Mr. Ravani. And when we found out that Measure W was going to be on the ballot, we thought it's going to be a long haul, but it could pass. We better find out when La Ventana is going to build homes and put in the sewer, put in the gas, put in the power, do the street improvements, because we're going to get there. If we pass Measure W, we're going to get there. So Hector and I, we would call, Joseph, how are you doing on finding a home builder? Because he was never going to be the actual home builder. He was just the developer to get it, entitled. And in the beginning, we got these responses, oh, we're working really hard. We've got some interested parties. We'd wait a few weeks, call back. Joseph, how's it going with finding a builder? Well, it's not great, but we're working at it. Well, Joseph, we have a bond measure in November, that Measure W, that we think, it might pass, and we're going to be, how Candace is, the minute that passes, she's going to say, get going, boys, go build that school. So there was all of this discussion about, come on, guys, we need our development partner to kick into action. Measure W passed, and all of a sudden, the phone conversation became alarmingly tense to me. Like, holy crud, they passed the bond. We have to find a home builder. We've got obligations that, that Candace, she's going to build that school. We got to do something. So shortly after the first of the year, I got a call from, I had no idea this guy even existed, Institutional Housing Partners, and basically saying, Fred, do you understand the real estate market is tough? We're having a really hard time finding a builder. And oh, by the way, our CalSTRS funding has run out. So I said, Jeff, what does that mean? Well, it means that we're in trouble. That our entitled lots are not attractive enough to builders. They need what are called blue top lots. Well, Jeff, what are blue top lots? Well, all of the pads graded, the utilities in, so that a builder could come in and actually start building 8 homes or 20 homes, as opposed to having to wait to do all that. So I think I kind of responded with, well, what does that have to do with us? Well, we found out in the next phone call. The next phone call was pretty alarming from them, because they're saying, without some relief from the County of Riverside, from the people that own the La Ventana property, Joseph Ravani was merely paying option payments. He didn't actually own the property. So all of a sudden, they're saying to us, without some relief of financial expectations from the county, from the landowners, from you guys, we don't think we can attract a builder. So I called Candace and said, well, we basically have a request for relief from the mitigation agreement that we have. So my first reaction was really ticked. But then I started having a little bit clearer head. Hector and I started talking with their engineers, and we had to ask ourselves, what are we facing if all of a sudden we become the developer to get those utilities to our site, because, you know, Miss Candace over here has already pushed the button on building the high school. We've promised the voters who didn't want a second bond, but approved it, that the school's gonna open in 2021. So Hector, what do we do? So we started investigating, you know, what are the options? So really, to me, and I'll kind of hand it over to you, there were two options. There was the option, do we assume all of the responsibilities that La Ventana financially has? Do we go to the Army Corps of Engineers and accept responsibility for getting a new permit that will take a year and a half? Because we're guilty by association physically being right next to La Ventana. So we would have to go back to Army Corps of Engineers and get a permit. So do we go that route, or do we accept, you know, develop a plan with them as to, all right, how do we provide them the relief with some ability for us to, you know, to be made whole? So, Ms. Candace, do you want to take it over from there? Sorry. Because we do have a plan.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, maybe the airport feels the need.
Right, right. Or they're at a point that they don't have a way to pay for fulfilling their promise, and more importantly, they need to have not just a project that looks good on paper, it has to look good in work. I mean, it has to have lots graded, it has to have utilities put in, and of course, we want the utilities because we need them for, you know, our high school. I don't know that I've ever quite faced a challenge like this, and you know, it's really all of the, to me, we made all of the right decisions. We didn't want to build, you know, sewer for the whole community, and it always looked like they were gonna go first.
And we still don't. I mean, we still don't want to build those infrastructures. So we're not in the business of building community sewer lines. We're in the business of building schools, operating schools, so it's a tough situation.
I want to talk a little bit more about their financial constraints when we have the full board. I have at least a dozen new gray hairs from this. Just a dozen. At least. as limited as possible. So during our brief break, Dr. Arau asked a question, and I don't remember exactly how you even stated it, but I wanted to make sure that we cover. So these conversations that Fred's talking about became very critical and eye-opening to us when IHP, Jeff, that Fred was referring to, talked to us, and so far they've been unable to, find a builder. But where it really became critical was around the middle of February, when CalSTRS said to them, "Look, we're already in this for $11 million. We're not going to pay that last option payment unless you figure out a way to find a builder." And so, and the reason I say that is because I want to be careful, because even though none of this feels good, particularly hearing it for the first time, because as Fred characterized, he had a lot of reactions at first, and we've all been dealing with that. But I don't want to characterize this developer, La Ventana, as no longer a good development partner. This is simply a condition of the market today, and so we appreciate that they have not just thrown their hands up in the air and says, "Well, we lost our funding." They are out actively trying to find a solution. And so their solution, the best solution that they could come up with, is to, this last set of bullets here, various forms of financial relief. And so part of that would come from the Paris Union High School District. And sort of a knee-jerk reaction to that might be to say, "Hey, go pound sand. We already have a mitigation agreement." But that doesn't really mean anything unless they actually build. And so we are all, but particularly the 5 of you as the elected board, potentially are in a political pickle, so to speak, because we can go through many, many, many options, but any option where we do not have this developer continue down the road of doing the work that's laid out in the mitigation agreement, forget about who pays for it for just a second, but doing that work, continue and finalize that permit with the Army Corps of Engineers. Any option besides that means our high school opens 12 to 18 months late. And so that's why, yes, Randy?
I'm sorry. I know that I may be getting ahead of some things, but I'm wondering if that other development has anything to do with the solution to this.
It doesn't, no. And I'm going to get there fast, what our recommendation is. But I just wanted to give that a little bit of backdrop where they're, yes, Tony?
Going backwards a little bit, this Mr. Ronnie? What part is he, where is he going to start at this point?
So he's still part of the story. Do you want to?
He's very much part of the story because unfortunately he has, I'm going to say, $1 million into the project that he threw in with the initial STRS money to get it entitled. But IHP has kind of not dumped him, but hey, we got bigger fish to fry, but he's still involved, but very forlorn and feeling like, he has a personal relationship with us that, he feels terrible. But
It's almost like IHP Capital Partners is in the middle.
Yeah.
They have the correspondence and connection with. They were responsible for securing the funding from. Here I go with my hands again. I told Grant I was going to end up doing this. So we've got CalSTRS up here, we've got IHP here, and then Joseph Irvine. Now we've got the property owners in there somewhere too, but in terms of what we've been talking about, IHP is really the one coordinating with the funding and with the developer. And as Fred said in the beginning, our agreement is with the developer, La Ventana, who Joseph Ravani works for and with. So they're all important pieces to this. It's okay if I move on, or did I?
So, I just want to make sure.
Yes, and it's important we take the time to make sure we're all
Yes.
on the same page.
Ronnie stands to lose quite a bit of money.
Yes.
He does, as does CalSTRS, as does the only people that would benefit in a bailout, or well, that's not a good term. In them pulling out of this project and just saying, we'll just go find something somewhere else someday. The only person that wins is the property owner that's been paid, I think, about $4 million.
In option payments over 3 or 4 years.
Okay, are you sure? Because it's just, okay, and I think it'll make sense. So again, our knee-jerk reaction could be, go pound sand, but that doesn't. No one's a winner in that, again, except for the property owner. They're $4 million richer, and now they've got land they can put back on the market, right? So they proposed a lot of things to us, and as Fred said, we all kind of argued and threw things on the wall and found something that would stick, that we think we all the parties can agree to, and again, most importantly, keeps our project on track. And so that would be to amend the current mitigation agreement that we have. Not in the way that they proposed to us, because we're looking out for us and our project and the district and our finances and so forth, as well as the work that we are capable of doing and want to do in terms of infrastructure and that sort of thing. So if the board were to agree with our recommendation, we would amend the mitigation agreement, changing the Paris Union High School District responsibilities to provide fee credits to the developer of that $59.50 per unit up to.
We never received that in the first place.
We never received it in the.
The houses were gonna be built.
Correct.
That's
But one of the things, and this is why we bring on people, smarter than us, so that, the three of us are thinking, okay, we will just never collect developer fees, we this project. We bring on our legal counsel, and she's smart enough. We read the first draft, and, oh, that's smart, Kelly. So she's written in there, we will create a bank for them, and we will track, and they will get credits up to $3 million. So if they somehow build a little bit larger units or something like that, so it's done on a per square foot basis, and let's say overall due to us was $3.5 million, she's now secured $500,000, which is little in the scope of a $170 million project, but nonetheless, thank you. So you're right, David. It's money that's not been paid to us, but ultimately would affect our long range bottom line by $3 million. We would contribute almost $1.6 million for the sewer facilities. That was, I think it was green and red. The green and red lines on one of the graphics that Fred had shown earlier. Yes.
One thing. When you say we, my thought is we're going to get state money.
That's a good
and we're going to apply for off-site improvements. So my thought is, again, I don't want any money coming out of our pockets. Instead, I want to fund that through state funding, through an application with state funding. And we've talked with EMWD about accepting that responsibility, but only if and when we get state funding. And they've, because we're a public agency, they said, okay.
And also because of the relationship we built with EMWD throughout this whole process.
And so the way that sewer facility is being built right now, as Fred mentioned earlier, there's a contract, you may recall, he mentioned, between EMWD and La Ventana. We would essentially take over that contract, but with a couple of caveats. The one creative thing that Fred said, we would only owe that money once we get state funding, right? And then another thing Kelly did is we would pay up to, that amount. So again, if construction cost escalations or those kind of things, that would be on EMWD now, and not us. And then we would contribute 33% of the developer's cost share. Remember, I was mentioning that light blue, the Newman property, it so happens to be called. Currently, the agreement is for the district, La Ventana, and the Newman developer to each pay for a third of the cost of what that intersection with the signal would cost. And so we would take over the developer's third, which is estimated to be $366,000. So all of those things together, while they don't cost us $5 million, ultimately it would be a $5 million hit to the bottom line, even though we would wait to pay for some of it when we receive state funding. If we receive it, then we were going to receive it anyway. And so just kind of keep that $5 million number in your head for just a second, because again, that doesn't feel good, but there's another side to this mitigation. Yes?
Okay, so if we decide to do this and La Ventana follows through and
right now we can put a levy on that property currently. But that's not a good idea as a first step because of the project. No, I know.
I'm just saying that could be a recourse we have down the road.
Absolutely, Edward.
What are the guarantees we'll get that state funding?
There isn't a guarantee that we'll get the state funding by any means. I do think it is very, very likely that we will get it. It's just a matter of when we will get it. I mean, they're doing bond sales right now for that next Prop 51 issuance.
Where are we on that list?
So the way that it's shaping up right now is Governor Newsom has proposed and is and now selling $1.5 billion in bonds. We are about $1.9 billion down that list. I know. Irony.
Okay, so
However,
we gotta wait for the next set of
not
bonds.
necessarily. We're so close because we have to remember many districts like ours submitted applications way back when. So we don't know what their project status is. They may no longer have their local dollars. So it could be that 400,000 of these projects drop off and we're lucky and maybe we're the last project funded. Yeah. Oh, what did I say? Oh, I did. Sorry. Thank you for catching that. Yeah, that is just a drop in the bucket.
But even if you say the next bond sale, in this case, it's just next year. It's already
So they're
authorized.
already intending to do another round of bond sales, yes.
Correct.
Because I know the $9 billion was originally agreed upon, but and Governor Brown did sign off on a very, very minor
Right.
amount, but some were sold.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't
Like enough to
sure
build 2 whole high schools or something.
I wasn't sure exactly where they were
Yeah.
with that. So.
Yeah, and I just maybe there's a little bit of Kelly in me. I struggle with using words like guarantee because we're not in control. But thanks, you made me that way. So anyway, so this would be our side, our responsibilities of the amended mitigation agreement.
And
And-
I'm sorry, I have
No,
one
no
more
problem.
question. Can you go back one?
Yes.
We're not talking about the $3 million because that's essentially money that we never see in the first place. We're just crediting them. But the 1.6 and the 366,000, that would all be covered with the money from the state you're talking about.
Yes
Could-
and no. The 1.5, this is truth in advertising. So the 1.6 would be covered by the receipt of state funding.
We would be on the hook right now for the 366 essentially.
And we've already bid that
We
project.
already
It's
did
part
that
of
work.
yeah
So
we're
that's why, I mean, it's in the scope that's already under contract. So again, it's not new money that would come out of, your pockets.
It would be funded through the facilities financings that we're doing, contributing to putting the project just a little bit more over budget, but we are not out of money at this point, especially with the state money. And we're not even counting on, well, I shouldn't say that. We want the icing now, right? So, but we are not counting on, we are not telling Hector, you are going to run out of money at this month.
At the very beginning, you talked about how on our comps, we went from 25 to 40, so that covers whatever we need to do.
Well, I was already counting on 33.8, but we still went at $5.9 million from what I knew about a month and a half ago. Yeah, it does. It does. That's okay. That's all right. We need to all be on the same page. So our responsibilities, and then moving to their responsibilities. One thing we can't do is amend this mitigation agreement and not have them follow through with the things that are important to us. So if you're you're showing us that you still want to be a development partner, that's great. But if we provide you this financial relief, it's going to come with some strings that will be attached. And you absolutely must complete that Army Corps of Engineers permit, because that alone will stall our project. You saw that image with that green area. As fast as Hector's contractors are working, they are going to be done soon and need to move that equipment off-site and onto their next project, as he was mentioning. So they're about 90%, maybe even more now, completed with this. It's anticipated that they're going to be fully permitted at the end of this month. So that's good, but we want to hold their feet to the fire on that, so that they're not letting a day go by where they're not worried about this. And then they would have to construct a number of utility and infrastructure improvements everything that was outlined in that original mitigation agreement, and that I'm going to go over in the next slide, that if PUHSD were to take over those infrastructure and utility improvements, it would cost us $7.5 million. And I'm going to outline, and it actually would cost us a lot more in the political arena, I believe, in terms of we went to the community and we said, if you pass this bond, we will get this high school open by August of 2021. I don't see us any way we can survive not doing that. And I say that as the larger we. But the reason it's important to note the $7.5 million that we would have to spend out of our pocket to do these utility and infrastructure improvements, I say that because if you remember, we talked about $5 million in this previous slide. So all of these things, again, they don't cost us $5 million, but it's an eventual hit to the bottom line of $5 million. Alternatively, we can take a hit right now of $7.5 million. There's a $2.5 million immediate delta right there. And if you remember back to Fred's earlier part of the presentation when he talked about the original mitigation agreement, they really only statutorily owed us $2.5 million. We got a whole lot more out of it in the tune of about $5 million, but it just helps make me feel a little bit better when I try to make some reconciliations here. I can lose $5 million to my bottom line, or I can spend $7.5 million. And I can clearly do that math and see that $2.5 million delta. And then I know that's what they owed us initially. So having them do this work that would cost us $7.5 million makes me feel like at least they've given to us what they would have been due to us by us waiving certain things, for them. Yes.
One more thing.
That's okay.
Can you go back one more slide?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so if we were to provide the fee credits to them, but does that allow us to collect on the CFD 92?
The CFD 92-1 would go away as well.
Well, it was already.
It would.
You're already.
It would.
Exempting them from CFD.
So that would
be included with the CFD now.
No.
They would not if they deliver on their.
If they do what we're asking them to do.
So we wouldn't get the $6,000 per unit, and we wouldn't get any money from the CFD.
That's correct. That's correct. Good. Very good point.
I forgot one
Please.
important part, because you talk about skin in the game. This is the ultimate skin in the game for them. They've gone to CalSTRS and asked for an additional $17 million to finish the purchase of the property and to do all of our infrastructure improvements. It's all riding on them getting this amended mitigation agreement.
So knowing that, we've played a little bit of hardball. We, led by Kelly. And these last two bullets here, I don't know that this is necessarily something we would want to do, but at our discretion, to your point, David, we would like the ability, again, at our discretion, to add a CFD to that property to replace 92-1. I don't know that we would ever do that, but Kelly has written in the draft amended mitigation agreement that at our discretion, we may wish to entertain that. And by we, that means, we would come back to the board in terms of forming that. Again, I don't know that we would ever do that. That could be a new CFD. That could be the developer assisting us in accessing the EMWD CFD that's part of the JCFA that you guys approved. I don't even remember now. It's all running together a few months ago. So there's that piece, but the absolute most important piece is there's a performance guarantee that will be in this mitigation agreement. And so we have laid out all of the milestones that they must meet in order to keep our project on schedule. Because we don't really care about their project. We care about our project, right, when we get right down to it. And so that will be in the mitigation agreement as well, so that we make sure that all of our needs are met. We good?
You go right ahead.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just thinking right now.
Please.
If this backfires us amending this, what is the worst consequences? Are we going to be going to jail for misappropriation of funds?
Oh, no. Well, maybe I let the lawyer answer that.
I really want to know. This is a lot of money.
It is.
And the community is going to look at us and be like, why? We've got some explaining to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let me let the attorney answer whether you go to jail or not.
Short answer is no on that. Because of the protections we would absolutely require be in this mitigation agreement. For example, before you were to go and form a new CFD, there's going to be a requirement that one is within the district's discretion, and two, we're working directly with the district's financial consultant to make sure that, practically speaking, the language in there says if we were to do anything like that, it would have to align with the existing district goals and policies. So in order to ever form a CFD, you have to create those. And so even in explaining it to the developer, they're saying, why do you have to be so express about all of this? Well, that's why, to keep us above board, well above board, should there be any questions about that. To your other question about the 5 million, Candace alluded to it earlier. What's not unique is this type of cost overrun on a project when you look at a mitigation agreement. Mitigation agreements rely on the fact that the homes are going to get built. Without those homes, there's no obligation. And so in forming those, we're wedded to this developer, and they truly are a partner. And if we look at it across the board, they've had their own cost overruns. That's why they're hitting their ceiling on their amount. And so what we're looking at here is not necessarily unique, but I think what's unique is how this team and the developer, instead of them just turning around and walking away and leaving us with a high school site in a vacuum, they're at least willing to come to the table. But it does, I get where your question's coming from. It feels like we're the only ones giving something up. But what we're getting as consideration is tying them to making this infrastructure happen. Because we have no guarantees that that will happen right now.
I think was answered. Thank you.
So the next slide I have for you here is maybe a little bit too much information, but I just wanted to lay out the responsibilities the developer would have that come to this $7.5 million. And so that's simply a list of all of the things that they would be responsible for. And again, we would have different milestones in there. But these are the costs that we would have to incur if we took over this project. There's two things to note there. One is number 9. We would have to go through the engineering and the plan processing. And again, that's that permit through the Army Corps of Engineers. So that would be an additional cost that they've already paid, but to have this in our name, that's about another $150,000. And then number 11 there is escalation costs. Construction costs are rising every single month. And so if we were to have to go through and bid all of these, just like we had to do for the high school, we do for all of our public works projects over a certain dollar amount, costs are going to rise by then. And so if we were to do all of this ourselves, there's another $7.5 million. Yes?
Is there any precedent for all of this?
I guess I could ask you two that.
Well,
Has anything like this ever happened before?
it's the perfect negative storm. I mean, the real estate market not being there. I've never been involved in something like this.
Nobody's gonna try to challenge it legally or anything?
Oh,
I think because we're talking about an amendment to a mitigation agreement, and it's a private contract, or not private, we're a public entity, but it's a contract established between these entities that the first body to challenge that would be a party to the contract, and I doubt it would be any external. But when we talk about CFD formation and those things down the road, that's the type of thing that could get challenged. But that's why we're building in those protections.
And
Randy,
just I'm sorry. Go ahead.
from a practical standpoint, what really irks me is in us assuming these responsibilities, again, the only winner are the two current landowners. Because we now are doing improvements that improve their property immensely.
Whether or not anybody builds on it or not.
Yeah.
Not just that property, now we're talking about us going in the community and putting these infrastructures. Other developers down the road are gonna come in and take advantage of that. First Union High School District out those funds to build these regional solutions.
So we should get a piece of it.
have to have the graders remobilized at a later date. There's going to be a cost to that. We'll be faced with delay claims, not just from crew, but from all of the other construction categories. And then we'll be faced with our own construction cost escalations. And as I said, we've not taken the time to estimate what that would be because we would be way in excess of this additional, $7.5 million. So I go back to what I said in the beginning. We learned of this, hey, STRS is going to pull out, so now this is an emergency, and let's work together, and so we've been doing that with the parties privy to this since middle to end of February. Conference call after meeting. I don't know how many times you were in Newport Beach. I know I was there once meeting with them in person trying to find a solution. And so we bring to you today, not that you have to vote on it today, but, and I can't vote on it today.
Well, this will be brought to us next week for the.
Yes, well, let me go here then. Okay, so, because there's a tentative in there. So, we have been working diligently to amend the mitigation agreement. Sometimes, this is not true of our legal counsel, but sometimes when you get a lot of lawyers in the room, they all will want things, their way. We are being very flexible, so long as all of the protections are in place that we want for the district. I don't know that I can say that yet, but I think we took a turn for the better today. It sounds like they were busy working on this. We were busy selling bonds, so everything's kind of coming together today.
But David, Kelly's come up with what I think is a brilliant idea, which I blanched at first because I'm, get it done, get it done. But her thought is, if the board has an LCAP meeting on June 3rd, maybe we wait and make them make progress on this Army Corps getting the permit.
Because you did say it should be, it was hopefully to be done by the end
Right.
of May.
Right.
And our initial thought was, we've been pretty brutal with that. I'll just tell you. We've told them, look, we've got the study session scheduled for May 7th. We need an agreed upon from the perspective of both sides agree to the language, by May 7th, because that agenda for May 15th posts the very next day. So our original plan was, and maybe still is, that at your May 15th board meeting, we would have an amended mitigation agreement as well as the agreement for us taking over that EMWD work. We also need to relook at the agreement for the equal thirds partners in the Scott and Leon improvements. We have to work with the county of Riverside on that. They take a little bit longer. We're not sure when we would bring that to board, maybe in June, maybe in August, hopefully not much later with you. So May 15th for that first set of bullets is up there as tentative. I'm really liking Kelly's new strategy, if it's all right with the board. I know that board meeting is typically reserved for your LCAP and your budget, public hearings, but perhaps we could devote a little bit of time to asking for your approval on those two agreements. And really that's kind of where we're at today. It's all been very, very fast moving. I wish we had a little bit more finality for you today, and then we're able to say, this agreement, will be before you in May. But I'm really glad that you all requested a study session. Not that you jinxed it and had this issue come up or anything by any means, but it did give us, I hope, the time to explain the issue to you, hear your feedback, spend as much time as we need to answering questions, because eventually we will need to bring something, before you. So today is really just about that and getting direction from the board.
I needed one question. If we were to create a new CFD, would that be in conjunction with EMWD, where it would just be a completely new one? Just
Very, very good question, and very important question, because
because it said something about EMWD boundaries or something like
Right.
that, so I wasn't sure.
So we've said to IHP, the developers, our board is tired of taxation. They're
Our
tired.
constituents are too.
I know. So this conceptual new CFD, which really would just be replacing what was there in 92-1.
Correct, just for that area.
Would only be in those 511 homes. but it would be different than the EMWD CFD, which is also only on those 511 homes. But one of the things Candace talked about is maybe if the finances work on the EMWD CFD, well, and let me say this, if Candace were running it, we'd be looking at some excess proceeds that all we want to do is maybe have a chance to get access to those excess proceeds to reimburse the mitigation payments that were not made.
So I think today, what we would like is, are you comfortable, you know, with this direction, irregardless of whether it's May or June 3rd, or we don't have to push it to the June, what's our regular, 19th, thank you, board meeting. We want to make sure that you are all comfortable and answer any questions you may have with this direction.
For me, I think that as far as I'd like to go is probably June 3rd, because I would hate to have to go a full extra month plus some from now. And if we could know if they had their Army Corps of Engineer stuff done by that time, I would be perfectly fine with spending a little extra time on the June 3rd meeting myself. But
I would rather it be the June 3rd meeting too, because I won't be here in the June 19th meeting, and I don't think it would be look good if I kind of skipped out.
Well, and I think that's definitely our preference, the sooner the better. But I want to be careful that we're not only allowing us that option. When we think about the timelines for agendas posting and that sort of thing. Again, that's our preference, but if we had to move it to June 19th, either because they didn't have the permit yet or whatever, we would keep you, updated, of course, but and not that there's really only two solutions, but from one end where I said, hey, we could tell them to pound sand, so to speak. Is the board comfortable that that is not a good solution, and we are at least moving in the right direction with bringing before you these the amended mitigation agreement as we've
So it
discussed?
sounds like that's really our only option other than pounding sand, and I don't think we want to go down that road.
All of us on this side of the table absolutely agree.
But
I
I
would
think-
recommend to you that this is our only option.
Yeah, I think, I want to hear what Dr. Brown and Mr. Stafford say, because you do need the majority of the board on this.
I'm still trying to absorb it, to tell you the truth. But are there no other infrastructure options other than, EMWD is dictating that work has to come, the utilities have to come from that direction, I think you said that, correct, so.
Yeah. And again, please understand, we don't like bringing this to you, but in bringing one option, my thought was, what can we bring to the board that avoids out-of-pocket, expenditures? And I'm not trying to soft shoe, $5 million, but
Well, I'm gonna just ask the questions I would ask, type of thing.
sure.
What effect does this have on the rest of our district?
So I would say the effect it could have on the rest of the district, if we were to, I'm sorry, I'm jumping to the negative. If we were to open that high school later, I think it could impact us for years and perhaps decades to come. I think we gotta remember, this Measure W only won by 411 votes. That's an extremely narrow margin. I don't know when, but there will come a day,
or another school is needed, and we have
another
to go
school
out
is
for
needed, we have to go
another
out for
bond.
another bond. And do we need, what will happen if we have one more hurdle, one more element of mistrust? Because as we know, it doesn't necessarily matter what the truth is or what the steps are to have, to have gotten to the decision that was made. Case in point, the state funding having gone away for a period of time. For a lot of voters, that didn't matter. You could present them with all of the facts, and it didn't matter. They would still believe the district was untruthful when they said in 2012 that Measure T would build that high school.
Well, I meant more in terms of operating the district, whether we're gonna have budget cuts, whether we're gonna have layoffs, or we're gonna have.
No,
Is this
No.
gonna start
no,
bleeding
I'm
into-
sorry, I didn't know you, I was, So
Well, we are.
the facilities funding doesn't have anything to do with the operational site budgets, layoffs. I can't remember the other example you gave, Tony. But district operations, we are not even permitted by law to take facilities dollars and direct them into the general fund that pays for these kinds of things that you're talking about. So now that I understand the question, the simple answer is no, there's no impact.
As you say, the truth is one wants to hear it. Not
Yeah.
necessarily is. So,
Yeah. Eric Crumpy used to have a really sophisticated way of saying that, and I wish I could remember it right now.
it's.
Well, what there would be an impact on is if this did get pushed out 12 to 18 months, you'd have 12 to 18 more months of
Cost
tighter
escalation.
classrooms because we still have to
Yes.
house all these students
Mhm.
in only the locations we currently have. And so we're still talking about overcrowding, and that's what this school is absolutely needed for. It's one and maybe another one down the road sooner rather than later, but we're still talking about these kids have to go to school somewhere, and if another 12 to 18 months would not make it comfortable for the more comfortable for the students to go to school.
For me, Hector, we need to take a walk. That's just where I start. I have to walk. I have to see it. I've been out there. I see it, but it has to really make sense to me. I mean, what you're trying to do now, I mean, I understand, but it's a little uncomfortable.
With this arena mitigation agreement, is there any delay over what we've already seen?
No, this would be because of that performance guarantee and those milestones.
If anybody reneges on their part of the agreement, the developer, folks, we have, they're trying to buy it. Could this just throw us into total chaos?
Well, I don't know about
Is
chaos.
there a way for that to happen?
There would still be and I'm glad you brought that up. So the performance guarantee, I laid out half of it because I laid out all of the things they have to do. I forgot, and I didn't mean to, but I forgot to tell you what would happen if they didn't meet one of those milestones. So one thing that would happen if they don't meet those milestones is it would delay the project. Not that it makes us feel any better, but that wouldn't be our fault, you know. And again, people are going to believe what they want to believe.
Wouldn't care.
Public wouldn't care, but that would be at the hands of the developer. Again, doesn't make us feel any better, but what it would do is they would no longer have that relief and mitigation agreement. CFD 92-1 would be back on the property. So Kelly has put in penalties, so to speak, into this mitigation agreement. So, and again, it doesn't make us feel any better to have that financial relief if that happens, but it is something.
You know, one other important point that we haven't brought out, there's 9 million, is this developer has already entered into an agreement with a contractor to do the
To make them
utility
blue top.
improvements.
To make them blue top.
They're
Right.
showing us
To
all
make
the
them
right
blue top.
signs.
Right, and so I would like nothing better than them to get the $17 million from STRS and have to spend it on us. I mean,
Yeah, just another point too is, you know, money's a great motivator. So they're already into this project for $11 million. Once we come to an agreement, they're gonna get those $17 million from CalSTRS. That's, you know, $28 million of investment that, I mean, they're not gonna walk away from.
This
I'd
is
like
the
to see
absolute.
CalSTRS get that money back because I'd like not to have more money taken out for retirement.
Dr. Ryan has something to say?
Well, you asked about how we were feeling, and I'm kind of what Tony said, I'm still digesting. I was a little bit late, I apologize for that. But I'm just summarizing all the pages. I just need like 2 or 3 more, and I need to understand. And I'm going to go over this. Usually I feel a little kind of prepared to organize in a few words. What's the deal here, right? So basically, in 2012, we bought the property in 2009. In 2012, Ferris Union was going to do the sewer services to PMW.
no,
No?
no, in 2012, we told EMWD that we can't accept the responsibility
Yeah.
for a regional sewer solution.
Yeah, because they wanted us 2013, Joseph shows up. We identify Joseph. He is from La Ventana. He is a developer. What would be La Ventana? What company is? He's not a developer.
Global Investments.
He's just an investment.
Yes.
Okay.
La Ventana is the name of the housing.
And they were investing money from stores
And his own pocket.
in his own bank, right? And he needed to hire a developer. So in 2013 also, Joseph and Paris Union get together, join efforts to do the sewer. And yours. Yeah. In 2014, supposedly La Ventana was going to initiate that, right? But they didn't do it. We were thinking La Ventana first and then Paris,
Correct.
right? But now the question here, because based on the flow chart or the report, what's that the environmental impact report gets to do that in 2012 there were no water courses, and in 2015 we get water courses? What does it have to do with sewer?
It has a lot to do with sewer, because in order to construct the sewer, La Ventana had to get this Army Corps of Engineers permit. They cannot construct sewer without that permit
Okay.
to correct the drainage condition.
And to touch on what you, to touch on what you said, that in 2012 there was no water course, if we go back on the presentation, you see that the red line? So when we did our environmental impact report, our consultant didn't find any water courses on our property. Their environmental impact report shows, see where the blue line starts? On their property, there's a water course. So they have to pull that permit, that's a permit they
Their
want
property.
on their,
What do we
It
get?
touches our property.
that little
Touches
corner touches
Little
our
tiny
property.
corner.
Okay, I was trying to understand what do we have to do with that, if it's on them.
Just that little corner is making us that green area that we haven't touched. We have to stay away from that until they get their permit, otherwise, we're in violation of their Army Corps permit.
That video that Hector showed of all the grading that we've done, in order to put in that sewer infrastructure, it has to be graded. They have to dig down, and so we cannot touch that area until the permit and the plan is approved for the water course.
So Joseph, in 2015, he asked for 440 units to build the permit.
511.
In 2016, he was awarded 511,
Right.
even though he asked for 440.
No, the permit,
We're gonna build 511.
the permit is called a 404 permit.
The 404,
Yeah.
yes, because that was the original request.
No, that's the name of the permit.
Oh, that's the name?
Yeah.
The name of the permit is
Okay, the name of
404.
the permit. Okay, and then we got to an agreement with Joe. For every house, you were going to give us $6,000. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
And what is our part for the sewer then? That's what I'm lost. He's going to give us $6,000 per house for what?
For mitigation. So, you know how every year you approve the school facility needs analysis that sets our level one, level two, our school fees. That was in lieu of those school fees, but in total, everything they were giving us was double what they
Yeah,
should have given
but it
us.
would be there.
Yeah,
Okay,
statutorily, they'd be required to give us those school fees.
okay, so we are still in 2016, and that's what I don't know if we can just quickly fill out the next one. In 2016, then Joseph said, until now, he said, I'm not doing anything. Until February 2019.
Didn't you say CalSTRS?
How STRS came
Yeah,
onto the scene in
STRS.
February.
Yeah. But we are not dealing with CalSTRS, we are
No.
dealing with Joseph.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, Joseph.
Yeah.
Right.
So, what's the deal with Joseph then until 2016? Everything was fine. Right?
Well, everything was moving along for his
Moving
project
along.
to get approved for 511 homes. But then, all of a sudden, they've run out of money from CalSTRS. He can't find a home builder, and he's stuck.
Okay. And that, we learned about that when the 2018, when the bond measure was passed, and then Karen
Correct.
said, hey, I need to move that,
Correct.
I need to do this, and now we have,
Well, now where it's at is it's not good enough that he has approval to build 511 homes. He has to have ground that
to do that. And as Fred said, you know, as the bond measure became, you know, more and more, you know, it's on the ballot, you know, they're calling, you know, every few weeks, you know, what's going on, what's going on. We're looking. February comes around, Sturs is about to pull the plug. Right.
What about the $4 million that the owners are paying? You said that they're getting payments for that.
What the issue is, there's two gentlemen that live locally that own the property. So what they entered into was an option agreement with Joseph and this IHP, which I didn't know. And the agreement was you will pay $1 million a year to keep this option open. If you want to buy it in next year, we'll get an appraisal and you'll pay the full price of the property. And that $1 million will go towards the purchase price.
So Joseph didn't own the land,
Nope.
it was just on paper, just,
Speculate.
Broker, so to
yeah,
speak.
on his mind. And to keep the deal, he was paying.
Million.
It was from Joseph's pocket.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna take the little.
That's been going on for 4 years, that's
Yes.
where it's at.
For 4 years, yeah.
Which I think is,
So we don't care about that, right? It's Joseph's money.
the developers, a lot of times they do that on properties. I don't think not owning the property is really, that's not
It's not
typical,
unusual.
it's not unusual.
Yeah,
And it's true we don't care about that, but to Hector's earlier point, when there's a lot of money on the line and all these, you know, so $4 million means that, like, they're gonna work really hard to not lose that.
Yeah,
Just as Sturs is working really hard in order to
Protect
be
it.
flexible and allow for this option for us to all keep this project moving.
Oh,
So
okay,
they're-
that would be-
everyone's invested.
that would be the consequence of doing
Yes.
that for us.
Right.
That there is a kind of a commitment.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. And now the proposal is we pay for the sewer,
Correct.
right,
But
So,
once we get state funds.
with the state funds.
Yes and no.
Yeah,
They pay for the sewer to get constructed that will immediately service our high school, their project, and then that additional development project below us. But we would pay for a sewer extension that would allow the capacity in that line to be larger and allow all of our school to be serviced in say 5 years. There's only so much capacity for sewer in that line that they're going to build.
and they are
And
going
pay
to,
for it.
and are they going to do it without even telling the developer?
When you say they,
Well, Joseph.
well,
I'm just
they're,
identifying.
yeah, they're going to use the money from STRS, this additional $17 million, to actually construct the sewer.
But let me bring up, so there's actually two parts to the sewer, and just outside infrastructure. So the first part of the sewer is the part we actually connect into. There's a sewer lift station that sits on the corner of their property. So in the mitigation agreement, they build these improvements. We connect to that. We open the school. We're good. But in the overall future plans, in the plans for development in the area, there's an extension up west of our property. That's where the 1.5 comes in. So that's an expansion of the line that's already there. Once more development comes, they need a bigger pipe in that area to flow what they want to flow. So the actual part we connect into, the part that they would build immediately, we're good. We can open the school. But once they start building houses, that section up there, the expansion needs to be put in. That's where the 1.5 million comes
And
in.
that's the what that we are going to pay.
Yeah, so it's down the road.
And it's down the road.
It does,
Yeah, the immediate, for us to open the school and not be delayed is part of what we're talking about. If we move forward with La Ventana and IHB and other guys that we're talking about, we have the ability to open the school because they built that infrastructure, that sewer lift station. They're gonna do it as part of this. Yeah, but the $1.5 million expansion of the regional sewer line happens down the road once they start building houses.
Okay, so basically,
But we'd be on the hook for that 1.6 almost.
Correct.
Yeah.
and that is the extension. So
Yeah.
we already did that, we are
And that is-
promising we are going to do the extension, let us use this.
Well, that, we're gonna pay for the extension.
We're going
Did you
to
say
pay for the
EMWD was put the extension in, isn't that?
Yeah, EMWD does that project, but that's down the road. We don't need that to open the school. That's down the road, once they start, and it can be timed with a few different things. We talked about timing it so there's a couple different options, but that's down the road once it's needed because of housing. You know,
And what they are going to do for the school to be able to function, about how much is that? What they are
it's
going
on,
to do?
it's on that last
And
slide.
then we are going to say, we are going to use what you are doing here with the promise that we are going to take care of $1.5 million.
Yeah, so just the sewer lift station is 1.1, almost $1.2 million.
They're,
They're doing. That
what they are doing,
Yes.
And then the force main.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and then that force main,
So in order, let me clarify this, sorry. In order to benefit from an investment of 1.2 right now, the technically is 0.6, if we would put it right now, right?
yeah.
We are need to promise 1.5 later.
Well, it's not just the 1.2 now. Right now, we're looking at if they don't build the offsite and all this infrastructure, we're looking at over $7.5 million for wrapping everything together. Not just the sewer, we're talking about the road improvements, the force main, the storm drain, the gas line, the electrical lines. So we're looking at over $7.5 million, not including the delay to the project. If they don't move forward.
So that's-
But Dr. Arroyo, you said something really important. Our investment now as compared to the future, and I like the way, and I also want to get a picture of your infographic you made there. Maybe that will be helpful. But and it comes down to this. Our investment of $5 million, however you want to slice it. Some is lost revenue, some we pay later, some we pay now. But our investment of $5 million avoids. Sorry, I got too many clicks in there. Avoids us having to pay this $7.5
And
million.
actually, that's not 7.5, that's
It's
actually
actually-
5.9, because we're already on the hook for the 1.6. So it's actually 5.9-ish.
Well, and it's really more than that because the school, is well, this is if we did all of these. So remember, if they go away, we will have to pay that one way or another. And so again, it's more than that because of the cost contingencies and the delay claims and that.
In my head, that's 5.9 more than what we already had to pay because of the,
Right.
we already got the hook for the 1.5.
I just like the way that Dr. Rao characterized that. So
in the final summary, then at the end of the day, or at the end of the period, 5 years, once we have the high school ready, what are the implications? Are we losing money? Are we just, because what Joseph did or the market did, is that costing us anything? I understand that we are going to pay with the facility, the state, but the question, probably let me rephrase it. That money or that funding is just because of, to do it or to invest that money on sewer, or is just a funding that we can use it in anything else, but in this case, if we are using it in sewer, so at the end of the day, it's money that technically, even though it's not coming from federal pocket, but could come because you could use it in something else.
Less
I don't know if I'm, less icing.
less
Yeah.
icing. So
Less icing.
the long and short of all of this is
Yeah.
everything had gone as planned, and they already had a builder, and they were working on all of the things that they were supposed to do per the original mitigation agreement versus what we're proposing now. The difference is $2.5 million when it comes down to it.
So that would, that
So-
would cost
so-
2.5 to save 18 months.
Correct.
I think it's worth mentioning that at the very beginning, when you talked about RE, EIR, and the later one, when you showed that second one that showed the blue line, it was just a fraction of our, so it'd be easy to miss something like that considering the drought condition that existed and the fact that it was just such a small piece.
Right.
It'd be easy for somebody to miss that unless we had had the idea ahead of time to extend the study over to where the Lantana property is. We never would have found it.
Okay, so we're talking about 2.5 million. And probably it might be less, right, for inflation, I don't know if you're considering that, because if we wait 18 months, that means that like a bigger building. Last one running on conservation funds. Oh, okay.
And that's just utility escalation costs, because
Yeah.
you're right. So it's a $2.5 million delta right now. But if we decide to go with an alternative solution that does not involve them any longer, and we have to take on all of that, this is just for the utilities and the infrastructure. Delaying our project has, 30 a lot more than $2.5 million. So you're absolutely right.
And so you're asking for direction if we wanna go with the amendment?
Yeah,
Or
we're asking if you
technically
agree with our recommendation, and we would then continue proceeding and bring these before you as soon as possible, targeting, it sounds like the June
Basically,
3rd.
it's making the best of a bad situation.
Yeah,
That's,
great way to put it.
So, okay, so I agree with, Mr. Nelson and, Mr. Freeman about the June 3rd meeting. And so the latest you said would be the 14th?
The 19th.
The 19th.
19th at our normal board meeting.
And I just wanna make sure we're really clear, we're gonna try our best, but I mean, I think it's clear how much of this could be out of our hands, but that will be our target. That will
And is there
absolutely.
a risk of going past June 19th?
Well, we don't have a July board meeting, so we have to,
Special meeting?
Yeah.
special
No,
meeting.
I understand, but I'm saying, is there a risk?
There could be, because, the longer we delay, that's why we wanna get this done, as soon as possible.
My question I do have is, the graders we already have on site, how long are they supposed to be there?
They're there through the end of June.
Yeah,
Not
not
a
long.
little bit of July. So right now, in June, they're wrapping up with the rest of the campus, and I tell them, hey, we're good to go, hit that green area. They don't charge us anything, they just move their equipment.
As long as they're out within the same amount of time, essentially.
Yeah, if they have to go away and then they come back, then we're at the mercy of their schedule.
And the extra costs.
And remobilization charge, which they charge us, and that equipment's not cheap. And just to touch on your comment, Dr. Rao, is the, contractors, if we delay, we have a number in there, but now we're talking 11, 15, 17% escalation in 12 months, 18 months. I mean, it's hard to gauge right now, but it's a lot more expensive.
So right now, we're essentially at the mercy of the Army Corps of Engineers getting that permit in, essentially.
I love how you always
Can we
just
apply
get
for
right to it.
Interestingly not.
We're talking about 12 to 18 months, but I think realistically it'd be more like 12 to 24 months.
Yeah,
You're not
probably
gonna open up
like
the
2
school in
years.
the middle of the school year.
Another thing about it is, I mean, if that was kind of the nuclear option, if we had to do that, now we have to hire their consultants, we have to hire their engineers, we have to start the whole permit process all over again, because we can't pick up where their permit is, we have to start all over since we're a different entity, so that's another consideration.
So how do you guys feel?
Hector, that, lift station, that's on our property, right?
That's on their
That's
property.
on their property.
Yeah.
That's gonna meet the capacity, it's gonna be enough capacity for, if they did build those
Yeah,
houses
so-
at our school.
So that lift station is being designed by EMWD, so they're gonna design it to our property. And it's considered a interim lift station, because once that whole area is built out,
That's what I.
then they're gonna need multiple lift stations, a lot bigger pumps, but right now for that development and our property, and our project, that lift station is being sized by EMWD to handle all that flow.
So it's designed, maintained, and we don't have
Yeah.
anything to do with it.
We don't have anything to do with it.
And if it overflows, it's not coming our way, right?
No, it's,
Right to the stadium.
I surely hope not.
Tony, it's going to Sun City.
Yeah.
No.
I lived in Heritage, everything
Yeah.
that could go wrong.
you and I were out there
did
one
go
night
wrong.
at 7 PM doing that, remember?
Yeah, so I've dealt with sewers. It's not
So
pretty.
I guess absent the dates that are listed on this next step slide, I think that's what we're looking for, direction or.
Oh, I'm fully in, if this is our, pretty much our only option, which we kind of established it is, I'm for sooner rather than later, just so we don't have any delays at all.
See, Tony?
I'm gonna reserve it when I come.
See? Yes, what he said.
See,
Okay, so 4 of us are on board, and Mr. Stafford is gonna
he
reserve
wants
his
to walk,
opinion.
he wants to
Yeah.
walk through the lot first.
So, so we're giving you directive to move forward, but conditionally. I want Mr. Stafford to be at ease, so if you could get this meeting sooner than later, get with him and schedule the walkthrough and whatnot.
Okay.
You okay with
Is
that?
that what you wanna walk the site?
Yeah, we'll walk the site.
Yeah.
It'll make a lot more
And,
sense now.
Earlier you mentioned it was good we had this meeting. I'm the one that pushed on this meeting, if you don't.
Thank you.
But I didn't want bad news. But we will work it out.
So that leads us to this last set of bullets. We want to, as your facilities team, make sure that in these future study sessions, so that you want to, semi-regularly, that we're giving you what it is that you're hoping for. I know none of you of strategizing, what will these next sessions look like? And it's really great that you brought up Walking Liberty High School, because we kind of thought it would be nice if we had maybe at least the next 4 of these study sessions. And we kind of outlined some dates. They don't have to be set in stone, but we at least wanted to propose something to you, because we want to make sure we're on the right track, right? Not out spinning our wheels. But, if we have our next study session in August, right after school gets started, at Paloma Valley High School, what we thought, and you can see kind of the schedule we've laid out here in the different project locations. What we thought is we could start out each study session and give an overview of all of the projects, graphically on a slide deck like we've done here. But then that will also give us the opportunity to be at that site and tour that project. And we thought that might be kind of fun and give you, rather than us showing you
Where
pictures
would
and
we be
videos.
at Liberty? That's my
I was
question.
just gonna.
construction trailer.
We'd probably want to go in October, because the daylight savings time, we'd still be okay in October.
Oh, okay. I did not
November
think
would-
about
Yeah,
that.
and we, at the groundbreaking here, we do know it gets pretty cold in here. So.
You're telling me.
We had a place that actually had some heat, that'd be great too.
Yeah, so at Liberty, the construction trailer has a big conference table. We meet out there every single week. So.
Yeah, okay, so we can again, this was just
I'm
tentative.
perfectly fine with us meeting at certain.
Do you like that
locations.
idea? Do you like kind of these tentative dates?
Yeah, we do accept October what Mr. Bennett said.
Okay, yeah, I wrote that down.
This is what we do with the Citizens Oversight Committee, and it's really
Yeah, really
helpful
well.
for them to be at the sites and discuss the finances, but then see the project. So we thought it would be meaningful for you to get out there and
And the time we picked all of these in a particular order. Paloma will have just opened, so you'll be seeing a completed project. Some of you with different experiences, like Mr. Stafford, will be looking at punch list items like we'll be looking at that time. But hey, we may as well show you the good, bad, and the ugly of facilities construction, right? Liberty will be, quite a ways into construction. CMI will have also be a little bit of a ways into the construction, and Paris High in August will have just started the construction. So, but anyway, at least that kind of outlines the next 4 study sessions. Sounds
Done
like
with that demo and getting moving all the data lines and everything.
Yeah, by August, we'll be taking down some buildings.
okay. So we're on the right track.
I get to take down a building in August?